And when I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
And if we're talking tight ends and we're going into round 2, maybe round 3, give me Ian Thomas, please. Let's just do the damn thing.
Just based on giving his overall ability. Again, I like his arm. I think he can make every throw.
The pick at number 12 is in.
All right, and welcome back to Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Russell Brown. As always, CP, Christian Page joining me. CP, how are we?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I got my feet up. I am sitting here ready to talk some 2020 NFL draft. I am very disappointed in Stephon Diggs. Just cost me 2 points with a fumble in fantasy football. And now the Washington Redskins, the 1-6 Washington Redskins, have the ball at the 25. So we'll see what happens here. But I really have no faith in the Redskins whatsoever to even come close to winning this game.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, Minnesota, Kirk Cousins has just played like his pants are on fire these last few weeks. And even though this game, I think Minnesota's probably going to predicate more on the run game. You know, when you have a healthy Dalvin Cook, you know, if you want to make an argument he's a top 5, top 7 back in the league when healthy, I think you definitely could. That running back class in general is just incredible. But I think Minnesota's probably just going to, you know, carry on and grind through the run game, probably just run away with this one. I mean, I think the spread was like 16 points, which I don't care how good the other team is, but like Minnesota's not a fantastic team, but Washington is just really bad.
Yeah, it was a really weird spread, but I mean, yes, Washington is very, very bad. So speaking of, I guess, being very bad, that puts them in a position to be one of the top 5 teams in the 2020 NFL draft. And over the week, you put out a midseason big board, the 2020 NFL draft. And for anybody wondering, like, where's my content been? I promised it's on the way. We just got 2 more weeks of football, possibly, if we make it to the championship game. If you don't know, I've been coaching my son's football team. That's taken up a tremendous amount of time. So I have not been as active in the draft community as I would like to be, but my son definitely trumps all of this stuff. So your stuff has been phenomenal, though. This midseason draft board that you have, or big board, is just phenomenal. And I really want to throw some names out there. Obviously, Chase Young being 1, Derek Brown being 2. Not really surprised there. Even Jerry Jeudy at 3. I guess I will start, though, with Derek Brown, just simply because I think between you and I, we are much higher on Brown compared to the consensus or really anybody else on draft Twitter. What's your take on Derek Brown, and really why has he stayed in this top 5 discussion?
Consistency. I mean, every single play, he's making an effect in the backfield, you know, whether that's rushing the passer, you know, whether that's affecting 2-gapping in the run game. He's finding ways to affect any part of the game. You know, he has that lateral quickness. There's a lot of times where, you know, he's making stops outside of the linebacker. He's making stops on the perimeter, you know, for screen passes. And, you know, just when plays run on the outside, he's hunting these guys down. So he plays with an A-plus motor. And I'm going to give kudos to – I mean, I don't have to give kudos. He gets all the praise, and he should. But Daniel Jeremiah said a couple weeks ago, I believe it was right after Auburn played Florida, and Derek Brown showed, you know, top 5 potential every single play. And then Daniel Jeremiah said, you know, usually I watch, you know, 3, 4, maybe 5 games of each player just to get, you know, a consensus, you know, scouting report going. He said, I watch, you know, just a few plays of Derek Brown. He said, I turned it off. He's like, he's just a freak. And that's what he, you know, athleticism, motor. He's a good dude. I mean, he's going to do a lot in the community as well. So he just being effective at every level, you know, passing, running, whatever it is, never coming off the field, can play your nose guard, can play all the way out your 4-eye, 5-tech if you need him to. He's just a chess piece on that defensive line, and there's no drop-off no matter where he's lined up. So Derek Brown, just based on consistency, you know, he's not necessarily just a flash in the pan. He has consistent splash plays throughout. It's a big game you're going to see him play against LSU, but we'll get in that in a few minutes.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely talk about some games over the weekend that are coming up, like Michigan, Notre Dame, and we'll even get into some Jim Harbaugh stuff. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Derek Brown has just been consistent really since the very first snap of the season against Oregon and everything else. And I've really liked what I've seen from him. There's no doubt about it that he is a top 5 player in the draft, and maybe even a player that would have some interest for the Washington Redskins. I know they're actually relatively good on their interior defensive line with guys like Deron Payne there, but you never know exactly what you're going to get. But it gets really interesting with your midseason big board of 9 and 10. 9, this guy really came out of nowhere this year. I certainly was not expecting to see this type of rise out of 6'1", 193 junior cornerback for Ohio State, Jeffrey Okudah. But here he is, or is it Okada? Is it Okada or Okuda?
I think you said it right the first time.
Okay. And he is a physical player with ball skills, and I really like what I've seen from him. He stood out against Michigan State, and really every time you watch Ohio State's defense, Okudah is all over the field. So you have him at 9. He is your top-ranked cornerback. Not your top-ranked defensive back. That's Grant Delpit at 5, the safety out of LSU. That's the consensus for sure. But Okudah, what do you like about him, and why is he so high?
I mean, to be honest, and I say this with the utmost compliment as being a jack of all trades, because he does everything, but he does everything very well. You know, he has the ball skills that you were talking about. He can hit you in the mouth. He can play at the line of scrimmage and press coverage. He has the feet and mirroring ability. You know, if he needs to, play off the ball in maybe a zone situation, he has the feet that he can quickly react to something underneath. If he needs to flip his hips and play on the perimeter, hit the deep ball, whatever it may be. He really is the full package. Now, he's a little raw because just based on experience, but immediately he saw some action his true freshman season in Columbus. So I think going forward, Okudah is really, if you're just looking at guys that have really bolstered their draft stock, and then we talked about Joe Burrow, guys like Jalen Hurts and this, that, and the other. I think Okudah, just based on projection of kind of being an unknown, there's just, he's an Ohio State defensive back. We knew about him. We knew he'd probably blossom into some kind of all-star caliber corner. But I think he's definitely accentuated his stock this season. And then, just overall, he's just a solid corner. And even though, just to be blunt, I mean, he just does everything well. And so I think he has the full package when you're looking at a first-round cornerback.
Yeah, I like what I've seen from him, and everything I said I stand by, and I agree with you on your assessment. 17 tackles on the year, 3 interceptions, 3 pass breakups. So Okudah is certainly one of those guys that's been a huge riser. Another one, Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle out of South Carolina, a senior at 6'6", 310. I would love to see this kid at the Senior Bowl. I will disagree, though. I don't think he's at 10, at least not on my personal big board. But what do I know? I left Tristan Wirfs off my preseason big board because I'm a dumbass. So Kinlaw, though, for me, would probably not be at 10, but probably somewhere in the 20s at this point in time. And, I mean, I think he's very physical. I like what he does at the point of attack, and I think he's certainly a plug-and-play guy, but I just don't know compared to some of the other defensive linemen. I don't know exactly where he would rank up thus far, but what's been really standing out for you on Kinlaw that has him so high on your board?
Yeah, I'll be honest. This one is a little bit of, of course, of what I see. I'm not going to put a player this high without really fully involving, a whole scouting report and watching a handful of games. But this one is based a little bit off of projection as well, because he has all the traits and skills to really be one of the top talents in this class. Wins at the point of attack with length and quickness, goes to work quickly. He gets his hands out in front of the chest. And there was a play that I can't remember. I guess it was this past week where Cole Kublik said Kinlaw is just doing Kinlaw things, and he's just throwing guys across the field. So he has that intensity when he wants to. Now, he does have some motor concerns. I know that's a big problem when you're talking about drafting a defensive lineman this high. But based on just his overall athleticism, his size, and just his ability to move in space, get the work done in the phone booth like you like to talk about, I think this guy has all the potential in the world. Still piecing it together, still trying to figure out, which puzzle pieces go together. But just based on a physical standpoint, this guy has all the potential in the world. So this one is a little bit of a projection, but just based on performance this year, the guy's been solid.
Yeah, he really reminds me of a Chris Jones type of player. And I think that's maybe why I don't want to say I'm not high on him, because I loved Chris Jones in the draft process when he was coming out. But like when I think of like just draft projection at the same time, it's like, oh, he's going to be like a 20s type of guy. But I guess, you're 100% right. He is a potential top 10 type of player that can certainly bring that type of impact on Sundays. And I really can't wait to see where he falls when it's all said and done. And like I mentioned, again, the Senior Bowl, would love to see him down there, would love to get a chance to talk with him and really see how he views the field from the defensive line perspective. But another name on this list is 15, Creed Humphrey. I love this kid. He is physical. He is aggressive as hell. The center from Oklahoma, an interior offensive lineman, 6'4", 312. You've got him 15th here, and I'm really curious as to, I'm not saying like where did he come from, but he's, 2 spots, or I guess essentially 1 spot behind Tyler Biadasz. And I know during the preseason we were all about him, and it definitely, Biadasz is at 13. So clearly we know we're very high on him, but Humphrey at 15, higher than a couple of other guys. Why the climb with him?
I think I actually even had him a little higher in my preseason rankings, and I dropped him a couple spots just based on people jumping him, like Kinlaw or Marvin Wilson, the defensive tackle out of Florida State. But with Humphrey, just talking about consistency, and I love consistency when you're talking about draft prospects. And Humphrey I don't know if he's the lone returner on the Oklahoma offensive line, but he's one of the guys that, even though he was a sophomore, he was the talk of the town last year. They're like, hey, these other guys, Cody Ford and some other guys, like, they're solid, but this center we got here, he's going to be the talk of the town next year. And now we're looking at an interior offensive line possibly being picked in the top 15. He's a little light in the pants, so his anchor is kind of hit or miss. He might be a little shorter just based on his arm length, that some people may not like in the interior, but he finds way to supplement that with good foot speed, with really having good hand placement, which is my biggest thing in an offensive lineman, because I think that even though if you don't have that length, I think you can redistribute your hands, gain that body leverage to kind of keep that contact balance. So just really checking boxes. He's a jack of all trades as well, and I just like a consistency, especially in my center, which I project him to be in the next level.
Yeah, I think he's certainly a center as well. And to be honest, at first I was like, oh, he's a true sophomore. And he is redshirt. He was redshirted in 2017. Last year was his first year as a redshirt freshman. So if anybody's doubting that, definitely go check it out on the Oklahoma page. But if you want to see more of this big board, if you want to see more of CP's work, obviously smash the follow button on Twitter @_Christian Page, but be sure to go to cover1.net and check out some of the recent posts that he's been putting up there for the draft stuff. It's phenomenal stuff, and this big board is certainly on there. And the best way, honestly, to do this is by downloading the Cover One app. It's simply the easiest thing to do. It's free. It's very fast to download. Some apps take a little bit longer. Our app is just 1, 2, 3. It's in and out. So go to your app store. However you go about getting your apps, just simply search Cover One. You'll find it, and then you'll just download it, and you'll love it. It'll be all right there, handheld for you, so you don't have to get out the laptop or your iPad, whatever it is. So definitely check out the 2020 NFL Draft of CP's mid-season big board. And we could definitely talk about this all day long. I'm not going to lie. I could go all the way down to 40 if I really wanted to, and maybe in the future we'll devote a show simply to that. But I do want to move into the schedule for Week 9. It's crazy. We are in Week 9 of college football. SMU is playing Houston right now. That game's tied up at 7-7. But really, the big game is Saturday. And there's a couple of them: Wisconsin and Ohio State. We've got LSU and Auburn. But there is a game tomorrow, and that's USC Colorado. And on your big board, I believe he was 29th, if I'm not mistaken, Austin Jackson, offensive tackle for USC. He's a junior, 6'6", 310. And if nobody's watched this guy, I've been watching him quite a bit over the last week or so when I have the time. And I will say he is moving up my board significantly quick. And I'm not saying he's Tristan Wirfs or Andrew Thomas good, but he's probably going to be my third-ranked offensive tackle at this point. And there's a chance he's in my top 15, more than likely my top 20. And I just think with with how well he moves, how well he handles speed to power, the ability for him to have this snatch trap technique that he's implied or implemented into his game to handle counters, and then the length. I mean, again, 6'6", 310. He looks easy on his feet. I just love everything about what he's been able to do. He's been starting at left tackle for USC. So if you have not checked out USC's offense, you need to do so. I know Sam Darnold's not there anymore. I know there's not really a whole lot to really pay attention to other than the receivers like Michael Pittman Jr. and Tyler Vaughns, but watch their offensive line, is specifically Austin Jackson. He is phenomenal. And I guess we'll also go right back to him really fast on what your thoughts are, him at 29 on your board, and really what you think of him as a player.
I mean, you hit everything right on the head. I love his feet. His ability to, keep the edge clean with incredible feet. I mean, light feet, athletic. He has the length at 6'6" to really stagnate any kind of outside rusher with speed, with quickness, or length themselves. So, I mean, Jackson, sure, he's a little raw in some areas. I think his hands are somewhat sporadic, but, just talking about the raw ability, like I was talking about with Kinlaw, Jackson has all those physical traits, and he's a good guy off the field. I know College Game Day did a story on him. I guess it was his sister that he gave a bone marrow transplant to. So he was recovering over that this offseason, this preseason. So he's still kind of getting back in the swing of things from a physical standpoint in football shape, but guy checks the boxes on and off the field. I mean, he's a guy that's going to win a lot of teams over based on his physical play, but also off the field as a leader. So it would not surprise me to see Jackson to continually, soar up those draft boards. And I agree with you. I think he's the third best offensive tackle in this class at the moment, but there is some room for him to possibly take that next step. Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs, maybe a team's looking more for a left tackle. They think Tristan Wirfs is more of a right tackle, so that's what he's been playing for the majority of his career at Iowa. So Jackson really could be the second tackle off the board just based on positional value.
For sure, and we'll see exactly what happens. If I'm the New York Jets, I'm taking Austin Jackson because, I'm just simply going to say this. I have Chuma Odoga on my right side. I have Austin Jackson on my left side. I've got my quarterback, Sam Darnold. Not a bad trio of USC Trojans.
Right on. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do this. But yeah, week 9, like I was saying, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Auburn at LSU, tons of games, Notre Dame, Michigan. We'll talk briefly about Jim Harbaugh to close out the show. But week 9, what's the game that you're looking for the most?
Well, I guess kind of be biased, but definitely just based on draft prospects, because we're talking about the LSU defensive backfield with Grant Delpit, Christian Fulton. They have a freshman cornerback named Derek Stingley Jr., who is outstanding. So we'll be talking about him in a couple years. But also Joe Burrow. I think this is going to be his biggest test. Florida was a pretty solid defense, but they still gave up 40-plus points to this team. I think Jabari Zuniga was out. Jonathan Grenard was out. C.J. Henderson hasn't looked to what he should be. I think there's a lot of lackadaisical play. We'll get to him, later on in the draft process to see if he's really, turned out to be exactly who we thought he would be. But I'm definitely looking at seeing how this Auburn defense, what Kevin Steele, the Auburn defensive coordinator, can throw at Joe Burrow to make him uncomfortable. Is he going to throw blitz? Is he going to throw him, different kind of coverage looks? Kevin Steele loves to play man defense, so maybe there's a way that he can kind of, manipulate Joe Burrow's mind and look like they're in a man format, but then they flip the zone, which causes more, confusion, more potential interceptions. So Joe Burrow's played essentially turnover-free football his entire 2019 season. So I'm just interested to see what Auburn throws at LSU, more especially Joe Burrow. But this Auburn team, there's still a lot of questions on offense. They're without JaTarvious Whitlow, who, when he went out a couple of weeks ago, he's the second leading rusher in the SEC, kind of flying under the radar. But if Bo Nix, true freshman quarterback, it's going to be another big test. He's already played at Gainesville. He's played at College Station versus Texas A&M, played in Dallas versus Oregon. So, if he can sit there and kind of, take it all in and not let the moment get too big for him, Auburn has a chance because their defense is that good. I think LSU comes away with this one, but it may be a little bit closer just depending on what Auburn's defense can throw at Joe Burrow.
Yeah, it's going to be really his – I know Florida was a test for him, but this one I think is really going to be the test for him until he gets against Alabama. But can't wait to watch that game for sure, 3:30 on CBS. the game, obviously, that I'm going to be paying close attention to is Wisconsin, Ohio State. We talked highly of Wisconsin last week, and then they lose by 1 point to Illinois on a last-second field goal, 24-23. They played down to their opponent. They weren't ready for a road game. So really shocking to see that happen. I really don't know what Wisconsin is at this point in the season. They have a very good defense. They have Jonathan Taylor, who they're leaning on. They have Tyler Biadasz at center, who's a very formidable and quality, great interior offensive lineman. So I'm just curious as to where they go against Ohio State at Columbus, where J.K. Dobbins, Justin Fields, Chase Young, I mean, just the list goes on and on. Okudah, so many great players for Ohio State. I just don't know if Wisconsin can handle it. I think they're going to have to lean on Jonathan Taylor, and if Jonathan Taylor gets shut down, then truthfully, I don't think Wisconsin has an offense. So I'm definitely going to be watching that game noon on Fox. It's going to be a good game for sure, and I think it kind of determines who is the best team in the Big Ten, whether it's Ohio State or Wisconsin. And then the other game that I'll be paying attention to, it will be Notre Dame and Michigan later on in the day. I'll watch Penn State, Michigan State, but the other game is Boston College, Clemson. And I know this is like, okay, Russ, what are you doing? But Clemson, 7-0, they're playing at home against a 4-3 Boston College team. But I'm really curious as to see what Boston College does without Anthony Brown at quarterback. I thought Anthony Brown was a player that could step up, move up some draft boards with his play. I thought he could take the step in the right direction as a quarterback, and I think he did that a little bit, but he will miss the rest of the season. So with that being said, I think Boston College, who has played Clemson tough in years past, more so at Boston College than at Clemson, but they will lean on A.J. Dillon, who has, I think, done a marvelous job between the tackles for BC during his time there. And he's already got 180 carries on the year, 970 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's averaging almost 6 yards per carry. I think he's a guy that's going to be leaned on against Clemson, and I'm curious to see what he does against this Clemson defense. And if he does well enough, I think that could help his draft stock. I think that could help him just tremendously up draft boards. I'm not saying, up to the level of a Jonathan Taylor or Travis Etienne or anything like that, but I think A.J. Dillon could turn some more heads and really put himself in that second tier of running backs.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. And carrying the load for a team that's kind of been riddled with personnel issues. You're talking about the injury or without Andrew Brown or Anthony Brown at quarterback. So I think Boston College is kind of that team that gives Clemson some problems. Not necessarily saying Boston College themselves, that you did allude to their past games in recent memory, but just that physical style of play where they can kind of hit you in the mouth, because Clemson's defense hasn't been really much of an issue this year, and we're talking about prospects. Isaiah Simmons has been incredible for Clemson this year, but we'll get to him at some other time. But Clemson's offense has just been okay. It's not – Trevor Lawrence is – maybe it was a little unfair to give him the expectation of being the best quarterback in college football because he was just a true freshman last year, but he thrived in that certain situation. So when you show – you kind of put your cards out there, you got to be able to, consistently win those hands. And he's not really doing that. So I think Boston College, just from a college football perspective, just watching this football game, I think could just give Clemson some issues. But I'm with you about A.J. Dillon. The guy runs with a lot of power. He has really good vision. Not this big-time home run threat, but he can beat you in between and outside the tackles. And I think he is a special player for Boston College. I think he could be a very good complementary back at the next level. Maybe kind of not to the same caliber as like a Benny Snell was used at Kentucky, but kind of as that complementary back. You're seeing Benny Snell play a little bit more week in and week out as the backup to James Conner up in Pittsburgh. I think A.J. Dillon could kind of take on that same role and eventually maybe work his way into a starting spot on the next level.
Yeah, depending on what happens with Cam Newton at Carolina, I mean, I know that controversy is a little bit off the wall. I feel like once Cam Newton is healthy, he'll be the starter, but let's just say they go with Kyle Allen and they decide to maybe go a little bit more run heavy and more run focused. And, obviously CMC is going to get a fair amount of snap percentages and volume and everything else at Carolina. I still believe they need to find a complementary back for him. And I think A.J. Dillon would be a fine option for them. So I'm kind of curious to see where he lands when he goes pro. So we'll see. But the other game is Notre Dame and Michigan. And this is more so about not even the players. I mean, we could sit here and talk about Julian Okwara or how bad Shea Patterson is all day long, but really the big talk of the town so far has been about Jim Harbaugh. And there was a report coming out this week and some rumors swirling that he's looking for an exit plan out of Ann Arbor, and he's trying to get back to the NFL. And he's 1-10 at Michigan against top 10 teams. Notre Dame's coming to the Big House, even spread. 52 is the over-under, the number 8 team in the country, the Fighting Irish against Michigan. What's your thoughts for this game? And do you think Notre Dame pulls this win out? Do you think Jim Harbaugh silenced some critics? Or does it really change? And really, what's your thoughts on Harbaugh? Does he go to the NFL after the season?
It was, talking about the game itself, Michigan and Notre Dame, it was kind of convincing that Michigan was able to fight back and at least make that Penn State game a game, because for a while Penn State was just doing whatever they wanted to. No, they weren't consistently putting points on the board, but there was a way that Penn State could have blown out Michigan. And Michigan fought their way back. Shea Patterson made some throws, some necessary throws to get them back in the game. But even though, it's under the lights in Michigan Stadium, which doesn't happen that often, it's a big game, a big rivalry game. I think Notre Dame's just too fundamentally sound overall, and that their one loss, the reason they're ranked number 8, not in the top 5, they lost to a Georgia team at that time. Georgia was playing really good football. Now they can't figure out what they want to do with Jake Fromm and how they can consistently have a running game with DeAndre Swift, but that's a whole nother conversation. But Notre Dame, based on, Cole Kmet, their tight end, Chase Claypool at wide receiver, Ian Book's a solid quarterback, in my opinion, a very competitive guy. And defensively, they're too sound to really give up anything to Michigan. Penn State showed their ability to play defense. I think they were top 5 defense overall in college football, and they kind of flexed their muscle and showed that last week. But going to Michigan and the Jim Harbaugh situation itself, I don't want to say I'm necessarily buying that he's eyeing NFL jobs, because, he's always wanted this Michigan job, and I think he is comfortable where he is. But I think just based on the salary that he's getting paid, I think he's a top 5, top 8 highest paid coach in college football. He can't win the big games like you're talking about. That maybe there is a little bit of pressure from the alma mater and be like, hey, man, you got to get it done. We were doing the same thing years ago, even without you. And so I think there is something. But I did see, I guess he had a reactionary post saying, reaching out to the parents of the collegiate athletes saying, "Dear parents, I'm reaching out to you to let you know that the recent claims that I'm pursuing an exit strategy is total crap. It's an annual strategy driven by our enemies to cause disruption to our program and to negatively recruit. By the way, I don't even have an agent or representative," which I don't know how you have a job if you don't have an agent and you're a college football coach. But anyways, besides the point, Harbaugh seems, he was quick to react to this. So it seems like he's staying put now. But if he can't figure out ways to win these big games, then he may be pressured out. Not saying they're going to fire him by any means, because he's still winning games, but he's not winning meaningful games. But it's definitely kind of concerning based on, everything they put on the line for Harbaugh. He's just not getting it done.
Well, and what's odd to me, he's not getting the job done. And they're going to get embarrassed by Ohio State. And if he gets embarrassed like he did last year, he should put the headset down and just move on. But, you just can't get beat that bad in rivalry games. But furthermore, if the rumor came out, why did you go above and beyond and write the letter and say, hey, nope, I'm staying, this, and that? I know you want to ensure to your recruits and your players that, hey, this is all a bunch of garbage, but call a team meeting, have your 100 players in there and say, hey, this is what's going on. It's all talk. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for the long haul. I'm here for you guys. And then when you have your press conference, like he does, every Monday or every Friday, or I think it's every Monday, or maybe every Tuesday, one of the two, either way, he's on our big local radio station, our big, Detroit sports radio station. Wait for the question to be asked and then say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what's going on. I'm safe, this, and that, and be done with it. Don't sit there and, I don't know. He just irks me, and the whole thing irks me. But it's definitely going to be a good game. I'm excited to watch it. Ian Book, I think secretly, quietly having a really good year. 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He's doing a really good job with ball control and just decision-making. And Tony Jones has stepped up in a big way for them running the football. 80 carries, almost 600 yards. He's got 4 touchdowns. And then Chase Claypool, we've talked about him before. Cole Kmet as well, the tight end. He's stepped up in a big way. He's looking like a productive tight end that always seems to happen at Notre Dame from Kyle Rudolph and others. But I really just can't wait to watch this game, and I can't wait to see the outcome because I'm really curious as to see what happens. So, yeah, I don't have much else other than keep up the great work on the draft stuff. I will be bringing more draft stuff in the near future myself. Do you have anything else you'd want to add?
I think we covered pretty much everything. It's not a crazy fun schedule this weekend, but we highlighted a couple of games, based on some draft prospects to watch. But yeah, definitely looking forward to hearing about how you and your son finished football season, because it's kind of cool. If you're going aside, at least you're coaching football, so you have to give us a status report the next time we're on.
Yeah, no, and it's been a lot of fun. We have a playoff game this weekend, and if we win, we go to Wayne State University and we play in the championship game. So it's been a big deal, and that's why I've taken it very seriously. But it's been a lot of fun. It's time I get to spend with my boy, and that's what's most important for me. So, the draft stuff, it's not going anywhere. You guys can, of course, smash the follow button at _Christian Page, at Russ NFL Draft. You guys can listen to me on 1270 The Fan every Wednesday to talk about Buffalo Bills and 2020 NFL draft prospects, as well as Team 1010 out in California every other Wednesday night. So, there's a ton of stuff coming my way always. But it's been a lot of fun, and I will give more next week. And if I'm in a bitter mood, it's probably because I'm still salty. But yeah, that's truthfully all I have for you guys. I appreciate you joining me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday night, and we'll talk next week.
Absolutely, sounds great. You do the same.
All right. Until next time, this is Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast.